Good morning, guys. This is your Commish report for Week 12 of the fantasy football season. We have just 2 weeks left before the playoffs start, and standings have been all mixed up thanks to last week. And we have a lot of really good matchups coming up that are going to determine some playoff berths. Luckily, I went ahead and beat Mike just like I thought I would, which clinched not only a playoff berth for me, but also a first round bye, because I will end up winning the division regardless of what else happens. So luckily I don't have to worry about anything until round 2 of the playoffs now. That being said, I do want to stay the first seed, so I'm not going to be benching any players. Unfortunately for anybody who's got me, that's Josh and I think Kevin coming up. So anyway, let's talk about last week. Last week was a tough week for a lot of people. There was a lot of really low scores, and that was just kind of across fantasy. I don't think that really says much about the guys' teams that were playing. Also, lots of injuries. John had 2 guys go down, Forsett and Freeman. There were a couple other injuries throughout the league. A couple guys get banged up. So things to keep an eye on. It's going to affect how the playoffs go for a lot of people, whether or not you get a guy at full strength. And really, the determining factor here for a lot of the matchups, a lot of the playoff matchups, is going to be the individual matchups of players, how your stars, what their final weeks look like in the season, what kind of defenses they're going against. All of a sudden, that stuff really matters. You got somebody going against a tough defense that could be the difference between making or breaking a week. So gotta be on our toes now coming up. But anyway, last week I ended up beating Mike, like I said, which was great. Beat him by 34 points. Luckily, he didn't have Antonio Brown, which helped me to win. But even if Antonio Brown put up a 30 burger, I still would have won. So I think that proves that Mike's team is not as good as he might have once thought. So quite the roller coaster Mike's been riding this year as far as his team being up and down. That also gives me a 3-game win streak. I'm going for my 4th this week, and I don't want to lose the rest of the year. I don't think I'm going to lose the rest of the year. I want that trophy. So I ended up beating Mike. Will ended up taking on Josh and beating him, also like I predicted. We had Mitch. This game upset me, and I'm glad Mitch won. I think it was funny, but at the same time, when you forget to set your lineup, or elect not to set your lineup, and you still win, that's just That's just bad. So hopefully the fantasy gods kind of bring some karmic retribution upon Mitch and mess him up for the rest of the year. We'll see. But so that makes Sip's playoff hopes not quite cemented, and he's going to have a hard road getting to the playoffs. I think everybody does, really, because I think we're starting to realize that any given Sunday you can really be beat by just about anybody. So we had Jeff get the win over John, which was shocking. Again, John had a couple key injuries that really messed him up for the week. Jeff almost put up 100 points. He had a respectable week. And just so you guys know, if you didn't know already, that means that Jeff gets to pick, I believe, 5 drinks for John to have tonight of his choice. So he could tell John, you're going to take 5 tequila shots, or you're going to drink 5 trash cans, or however he wants to punish him, or he can make him drink 5 apple juices, whatever he wants him to drink. So that's certainly an interesting little factor that's going to play in tonight on Friendsgiving. So anyway, Jeff gets the win to keep his playoff hopes alive, and then Kevin gets a win over Jimmy, which was crucial for him to remain in the playoff hunt. Everybody is still potentially in the playoffs, but there's a lot of math that goes into different matchups, who wins, who loses. People can get eliminated this week. depending on how the matchups go, like Josh and Mitch. So there's quite a bit of quite a few storylines that could still play out here, which is exciting. So anyway, looking at the standings now, I have taken my rightful spot as first in the league over John because Will won, taking over first in that division. Because I've scored more points than Will, I end up in first. And so we're going to have to see if John can fight back or if Will can fight back and try and take back the first spot. But regardless, I have a bye. And regardless, Will has clinched a playoff spot. So me and Will, the first to clinch, which is great. In my division, right behind me is Jeff and Jimmy. And both these guys are at 5 and 6. Jimmy has significantly less points. He has like 60 less points. So Jimmy's going to need a really big week to put up enough points to help him with these tiebreakers. And tiebreakers are really what it's gonna come down to. So Jeff is still in the playoffs. Lord knows how. But he managed to just kind of limp along here. I can't understand it. But I guess he had a strong start to the year, which is kind of helping his skid here. Even though he won last week, I don't see Jeff going out of the first round of the playoffs. So, regardless, I'd like to see Jeff in the playoffs. He'd be an easy win for me. So hopefully we can see him in the playoffs. Anyway, behind Jimmy in my division is Mike at 4 and 7, followed by Josh at 4 and 7. Now, an interesting little point here. Mike is less than 2 points behind Jeff for the tiebreaker of most points scored. So if Mike wins this week, if Mike wins this week, Jeff loses, Jimmy loses, then Mike will jump up to second in our division because of the points scored. Unless, Jeff can put up a lot of points and still lose, which is something that Jeff could very well do. So interesting nonetheless. Mike has a real good opportunity here to jump up. Josh would have to beat me and need several losses to jump up. He would need Mike to lose. He would need Jimmy to lose. He would need Jeff to lose. So unless all that goes his way, Josh will be eliminated, I believe. So I think I'm going to win this week. I don't think he's going to get it, but it's possible. In the other division, like I said, Will's in first. John is a game back in second. So John's going to need some help if he wants to get back up to the first spot. And followed by Mike and Kevin at 5 and 6. Kevin moves up in the rankings. And Mitch rounds out the bottom of that division. So a lot of really close, couple of really close divisions. It should be pretty exciting to see what happens over the next couple weeks. Speaking of which, this week, it's me against Josh. And I don't think that this is going to be much of a problem. I think I'm going to win. For the same reason I said earlier, I just have better matchups. I have Chris Johnson, TJ Yeldon, Mike Evans, and Larry Fitzgerald all going against really poor defenses against their positions. I think that's going to help me put up a lot of points and really solidify my spot in first. And I think that Josh just doesn't have what it takes to win. I know he's lost a couple good games this year. He's put up a lot of points. He's capable of it, but I just don't see it this week. We have John taking on Mitch. And normally I would say that this game easily goes to John. If you asked me 4 weeks ago who would win, John or Mitch, I would have said John in a heartbeat. But John is choking. John is Tony Romo. John is the Dallas Cowboys. And that's about the worst insult I can give a man. But John is choking hard. He is on a 3-game skid and is just falling to pieces. He loses Justin Forsett. Devontae Freeman's banged up. Still going to play, which is good for him. And Mitch, now that he doesn't have to worry about starting a lineup because of buys, he can actually get a full lineup. But looking at these two teams, I think John's going to win. Despite the fact that he's on a skid, I think John bounces back this week. And that's because I really hope that the fantasy gods smite Mitch for his tomfoolery that he pulled last week. And John has a better team than Sippy. I think Sippy could lose to just about anybody on any given week. John, I think, is a stronger team. Even without Justin Forsett, I think John gets this win, but I think it's close. So I know they're projected within about 7 points of each other. Everybody's got pretty close projections, but I got John winning this week. Then we have Kevin taking on Will, and this is a really great game because Kevin needs this win to really get that playoff spot that he needs. And playing a divisional game, it would help him to kind of knock Will down a little bit. Even though Will has already clinched a playoff spot, it could still help him. I mean, obviously, he needs to win. That being said, looking at this is the closest game of the week, I believe. Only about a point separates these two projections. And I know projections are shaky at best. ESPN, I swear, they just have some monkey sitting behind a computer just pressing random buttons to determine who's going to get projected for what. But I think that Will gets the win this week. I think he is the favorite. His team has found ways to win. He's got a lot of really good matchups. And he's got a couple guys playing on Thanksgiving. I know he's got Alshon Jeffrey, and he's got Todd Gurley, DeMarco Murray. So I think guys who play on Thanksgiving just tend to perform better. They're on that national stage. They really get a chance to showcase themselves. And you look at somebody like Megatron, who in the past 6 Thanksgivings has always scored. And players that are good, like Gurley and Jeffrey, like DeMarco Murray and Jeffrey, I think they're going to find ways to do well on a big stage, and I think Will gets that win. Then we have Sippy going against Mike, and this is my game of the week. Mike on Mike. Mike versus Mike. And I love this matchup. I'm really excited. These guys are also really closely projected, less than a point between them. And really, this has got some serious playoff implications. So Mike Wimpy needs this win if he wants to stay in contention. Sippy needs the win to help himself from getting bumped out of the playoffs. And I think that this is going to be a great matchup. This was one of my harder ones to pick. I'm going to take Sippy. I think, again, the fantasy gods are going to swing the pendulum back in Sippy's favor. And I think that he's going to get the win, and he's going to knock out Mike. I know I was high on Mike for a couple weeks there, and he's having a great comeback. But I think it's going to fall short. I don't think he's going to make the playoffs. Even with Antonio Brown playing, Antonio Brown going against Seattle, I think that's going to be a tough matchup for him, probably his toughest of the year. Seattle knows exactly who they need to cover. So I think that Antonio Brown puts up a disappointing stat line this week, and Sippy wins. So I think that would be really exciting for the playoffs. But I believe even if Mike loses, because Sippy's not in his division, if Jeff and Jimmy lose, well, that can't even happen. So he would need, depending on who lost, he could still be in the playoffs. Again, I'm not taking the time to go through and figure out every scenario of who wins and who loses, what could happen. But I think Sippy wins. If Mike wins, he still has a shot in the playoffs, depending on what happens around the league. That being said, the last game is Jeff against Jimmy. And this is also a really great game. These two are neck and neck, tied for second in my division. Jeff has the points, but if Jimmy wins, he'll have the record. So if Jimmy wins and Mike wins, Mike will jump up. And even if Mike will jump up regardless if he wins because of the way Jimmy and Jeff, they're both above him in the division. But this game is much easier to predict. I think Jimmy wins. Sorry, Jeff. I look at your team and I'm so underwhelmed. I'm like, there's nobody on your team that I look at and I think, ooh, he's really good. Nobody. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins. But nah. And my earlier comment about Thanksgiving, Jimmy has Tony Romo, Langford, and Sproles all going on Thanksgiving. Not to mention, obviously, Dez Bryant. He's got Greg Olsen. He's got Philly's defense, Jason Witten. He's got all these guys on Thanksgiving. And I think that that really helps him to have these guys. Hopefully they play at a high level. I think they do, and I think Jimmy wins. I think his projections have been low so much because Jimmy's a team that could put up 130 points without a problem. Having Tony Romo back is only going to help him. He finally has a great quarterback to start as far as fantasy is concerned. And he's got that helps Jason Witten. That helps Dez Bryant. So his whole team becomes better now that Tony Romo is playing. And because the Cowboys really don't have anything to play for, there's no pressure on Tony Romo, so he can't really choke. So I think that Jimmy gets this win this week and bumps Jeff down. So there's been a lot of shakeups of the playoff bracket. And there's going to continue to be them. Really, this is going to be one of those years that comes down to the wire as to who's seated where. Right now, if you look at the playoff brackets, I obviously have a bye clinched. Will has a bye now because he bumped ahead of John. And I think that I have an easier way through the playoffs as they stand right now. Because I would play the winner between Sippy and Jeff. Which is really, I mean, that is the dumb leading the blind. So I think that would be a really funny matchup. I'm not even going to pretend to project who I think would win, because I want them both to lose. Unfortunately, that's not possible. But I think that going against the winner between Sippy and Jeff is better than going against the winner of John and Jimmy. So that being said, upsets can happen in the playoffs all the time. They usually do. But that's how the playoffs stand right now. They are certainly subject to change. And start thinking, for all you guys, about your keepers. I know you don't have to until next year, but it's certainly something to think about. If you want to pick somebody up who can be kept off the waiver wire, now's the time to do it. Because if they're on your roster by the end of the year, then you can keep them as long as they, are eligible to be kept. So if there's anybody on the waiver wire you guys are thinking of, best snag them up now. After the playoffs, that'll be it. So anyway, that's basically your Commish report. So I know it's a little long this time, but there's quite a bit to talk about now with all these playoff implications. This is going to be a really great week. I'm really excited for it. That being said, Josh, I don't even know. I was going to make fun of you, Josh. I was going to make fun of you. I was going to come out here with some really good jokes and talk about how you got some bad karma because you brought your girl to the draft, and that's like bringing a girl on a boat. Like, it's just bad luck. And I was going to talk about how we haven't heard from you all year, but that's just it. We haven't heard from you all year, so I'm not really, I don't even know if you're watching these. If you are, send like a smoke signal or something, and we'll have Mitch read it and tell us what you're saying. So I don't know if you're just really busy, but Josh, surprisingly less active than our out-of-towner Jeff. Who should now, actually, as of this morning, he should be an in-towner. So I should be seeing just about most of you guys tonight. at Friendsgiving, and I'm looking forward to that. So I will see you guys tonight. Josh, I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but if I do, you suck, and I hope you lose. And other than that, guys, have a great week.